What is up, my maniacs? I'm the Awesome Maniac, and today we're looking at the movie that killed Freddy Krueger. Not really. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. It was released on September 13th, 1991, and was directed by longtime Nightmare crewmate Rachel Talalay. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The original script for this called for the Dream Warriors to aid a 15-year-old Jacob Johnson in defeating Freddy after he kills Alice. Another one, penned by Peter Jackson, was rejected, and they finally settled on a story by producer Michael DeLuca and director Rachel... I'm not going to say her last name again. New Line went so far with the marketing for this that they held a funeral for the son of 100 Maniacs. Los Angeles actually declared September 13th Freddy Krueger Day, and this was the last time the original incarnation of Freddy was seen for 12 years, so the movie killed off Freddy better than Jason Goes to Hell killed off Jason. Let's see how they killed him by starting with the characters. This one has one of the smallest casts of any Nightmare movie, and you'd think with that time the movie would have handled the characters better. Apparently not. No character in this is straight up bad, but they're all just forgettable and not really fleshed out. The best character in this, I'd say, is actually Tracy. Tracy feels like the best rounded and realistic character. Spencer is the wild child stoner who builds fucking mini bombs. Carlos is the deaf comedy relief that doesn't really do anything. Then there's John Doe, who's only memorable for how much Freddy fucks with him. And you know the movie isn't doing well when the main character gives a flat performance and generally is just boring to watch. I mean this in the best way possible, but nothing this movie does, and it doesn't do very much, I just can't care about the characters. Short section, but I'm giving them a Tina rating. The story in this thing is all over the place with weird choices made throughout. To start off, this one to me is just straight up comedy. There's no horror to be found here. You'd think with this being the movie to kill off Freddy, they'd put a lot more effort into it. Freddy vs. Jason did a much better job of putting a cap on the Nightmare series. The movie has some weird editing moments where scenes with one character weirdly cutting straight to another scene with the same character. But I'll start from the beginning. The movie opens with John Doe on a plane giving me some Final Destination vibes. Then we get this Wizard of Oz reference with Freddy, and it's just cheesy as hell. And that's a motive with this movie. Even though it's a comedy, a lot of the stuff is just cheesy with some weird effects that come off as really silly. Basically, John Doe is the last Elm Street kid, and Freddy needs him to connect with other people so he can continue his killing spree. Oh yeah, and there's also the factor of Freddy having a kid. What I want to know is Freddy's plan. I understand him using John Doe, but did he know that he'd run into his daughter? If so, why hasn't Freddy used someone else to get to her before? I know that they're introducing like this daughter character in the 6th film in franchise, which is supposed to be the final one of the movies. And I get like they couldn't like do anything before because they know she was going to be in it. But it just doesn't help. It doesn't help Freddy's plan in this at all. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of Freddy having a child. I actually think it fits with his backstory really well. But I'm just left here guessing what his plan really was. And that is actually my favorite part of the movie, is watching Freddy's backstory. He's not like Jason or Michael. He's not some silent stalker, and knowing his origin isn't detrimental to the character. We've gotten bits and pieces of his backstory throughout the series, and here we actually get the missing pieces, including a fun Alice Cooper cameo. Anyways, the movie telegraphs Maggie being Freddy's daughter a little too hard. If that was meant to be a twist, it wasn't pulled off very well. That's not the only thing this movie doesn't pull off well. The way Springwood is presented, with a town full of nuts, including cameos from Tom Arnold and then wife Roseanne Barr, it's just a little too ridiculous. I get the idea they were going for, but not really a great idea to start with. Conveniently enough, John Doe ends up in a place with a guy who knows all about dream demons and other sleepy shit. He also ends up with Freddy's daughter. Conveniently. But for all the shit I'm giving the movie for being ridiculous, there are some actual funny moments, like the map is fucked or Johnny Depp's cameo.
Yeah, well, the map says we're fucked.
All right, once again, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Questions?
Yeah! What are you on? Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me.
Then we get to the last 10 to 20 minutes, which is presented in 3D. That, more than anything in this movie, felt way too gimmicky and ham-fisted in there. I don't think it adds anything to the movie other than making Maggie look like a fucking crackhead waving her arms around with crazy eyes. Maggie is able to bring Freddy into the real world, something they haven't tried since the original. And instead of taking his power away, the plan is just to beat the ever-living fuck out of him, and I'm all here for it. His fight with Maggie is brutal when we actually get to see Robert Englund out of makeup as modern Freddy. I kind of like that they tried to make Freddy a little more sympathetic in this one. Or, at least he tried to make himself look more sympathetic. Maybe I read this wrong, but the movie makes it seem like he started killing children because they took his child away. But the reason they would have taken his child away is because he was killing children. Or, and this seems way more likely to my small brain, he killed kids, his wife and daughter found out, he killed his wife, and his daughter told on him, and that's why he got arrested. Then they took away his daughter, so he decided to kill the rest of the kids as revenge. Okay, I think I got it figured out. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here by talking about the ending. As I said before, Maggie beats the fuck out of him like Nancy tried to do before. Only this time she succeeds because the possessions locked at their home is filled with instruments and death and mini bombs. It works though. Freddy is blown up and in-universe, it keeps him down for 4 whole years. That's the longest he's had downtime for, besides when he was burned alive. This seems to be the best method because it works for Laurie and Freddy vs. Jason. There are things I liked about the story, but way more that I didn't like. So for that, I'm going to give the story a Batman and Robin rating. Okay, starting this section right off the bat saying Freddy is better in this than Dream Child. His looks leave a lot to be desired, but at least he doesn't look old and saggy. He looks like melted bubblegum, but I'd take that over Dream Child's look. And, unlike in Dream Child, Freddy is actually funny at times here, whereas in the previous one he was just cringe. Especially when he's messing around with Carlos. His one-liners aren't as bad as the previous one, and they're actually pretty memorable. Freddy also seems to be more playful in this one, actually talking a lot more with his victims and messing with them. He just seems to be having a blast, and I can't fault anybody for that. I think for this one, I'm going to give him a Stalker rating. This movie has one of the lowest body counts at 6, with 2 of those being in flashbacks and 1 being Freddy himself. So I want to start this one talking about Carlos's death. Freddy really fucks with him here and ends up blowing his head off. That's always cool to see. Then there's Spencer's death, which is really cartoonish and just way too ridiculous and cheesy. Coolest thing I can say about this is the blood TV, which also happens to be the most horror thing about this movie. And finally, John Doe's death, which I actually like. John doesn't do anything to stop Freddy, just lets him cut the parachute. Then he falls into a bed of spikes, and the effects where you don't actually see the spikes, just the punctures in the body, is really cool. For kills, it's a mixed bag, so I'll give them a next snap rating. And as always, here are the kills.
Don't you know that I'm loving you? In a garden of Vita, baby. Don't you know that how is the truth? Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh, won't you come with me and walk this line? Please take my hand.
After Dreamchild, which pleasantly surprised me with how different I saw it, I thought the same would be true with this one. Turns out that's not the case, and the movie deserves every bit of hate it gets. While I personally don't hate the movie, it's just not good and outright bad. The flat characters, subpar kills, and cheesy story don't add up to be anything of note, which is bad for a movie that's supposed to end a series. I don't like being negative, but overall I wouldn't recommend watching this movie, which is why I'm giving it a trash rating. Join me next time where things are going to get very meta. Until then, don't forget to like, share, comment, and if you haven't, subscribe. Bye bye.